I want to get back to this issue overseas. These talks in Geneva, there seems to be some headway made over the last 24 hours, a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. There were concerns that the US was asking Ukraine to give up territory that Russia hadn't even gained. Joining me live now is Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, Vasyl Myroshnychenko. Vasyl, thanks so much for your time. Really interesting to see this statement out of the Ukrainian Prime Minister's office. It's very polite. They said it was respectful. It undershared a shared commitment to achieving lasting peace. And I thought it was most instructive where it said Ukraine's sovereignty, any peace deal must fully uphold Ukraine's sovereignty and deliver a sustainable and just peace. Is that really the red line there?
Absolutely, because Ukraine's sovereignty is extremely important in this particular case, because just to remind you, it wasn't Ukraine which started the war, Russia started the war. And of course, Russia can get rewarded for starting the war. And we need to make sure that it doesn't happen, that we can achieve a lasting and just peace. And most importantly, that we can uphold Ukraine's sovereignty, because at the end of the day, what kind of signal that's going to send?
Yeah, so Vasyl, we saw the Witkoff peace plan. There was a lot of column inches dedicated to it over the weekend, this 28-point plan. And there was a lot of concern that Ukraine, that going back to sovereignty, that would have damaged Ukraine's sovereignty and asked to give up territory that Russia hadn't even gained. So from what you know about these talks in Geneva, has the balance shifted a little bit more in Ukraine's favour now?
The statement that President Zelensky has put out clearly states that the negotiations are constructive. They are done in a good spirit. There is some progress made. We don't yet have all the details about it, but definitely there are many important items that we must achieve in those negotiations. And of course, the commitment to work closely with the U.S. administration as well as with our European partners, because the implications of the way this war is going to end will be reverberating for another decade or more. And also we need to make sure that Russians do not invade again later on. So a lot is about security guarantees, what assurances and actually guarantees we can get from the U.S. and European allies to make sure that Russia is deterred in the future, because Russians invaded Ukraine twice already. And of course, I'm not even mentioning how many times they invaded Ukraine throughout the history. But this is nothing new. Nothing is going to change. Russia will always be there at the border. And the only way how we can deter Russia is to make sure we have strong military, we are strong economically, we integrated into the European Union, and we can defend ourselves.
Trump was pretty critical of Ukraine. There seems to be a real love-hate relationship between both of the presidents. But, I mean, that statement was effusive in its praise for Trump, and I'm sure Trump will like that. But I thought it was also quite interesting that Trump is also making a big point now of the Europeans still buying Russian oil. What is Ukraine's position on that?
Well, our position is the following. To force Russia into peace, we need to be united and we need to exert that pressure jointly. That includes imposing more sanctions. That includes transferring the Russian sovereign assets to Ukraine so we can use them to arm ourselves. That means more sanctions on the Russian companies and the Russian leaders and entities which are out there. Only when we demonstrate the strengths together and that unity, which comes from the front line, goes back to the political offices, this is how we can force Russia into peace. You can see any concessions to Russia, they perceive it as a weakness and they will jump on it. And definitely us, Ukraine, European allies and America must stand together in this particular case. Because, look, what Russia is trying to do is Russia is undermining global democracies, liberal democracies. It's an attack. And definitely they are projecting their power here in the Pacific. And we see more and more of that here in Australia.
Yeah, we do see that, absolutely. So where do you think these talks end up? Do you think this is going to be something that wraps up quickly, or do you think there are fundamental differences now between the US and Ukraine into, what peace looks like?
Laura, the meeting yesterday in Geneva was a productive meeting. It made some progress. We'll see how it goes today, on Monday and Tuesday, and can we achieve anything before American Thanksgiving? I don't have a magic ball. I can't predict it. There are some very important red lines for Ukraine, for the European allies as well, and we are working together along with everybody involved. And definitely it's too early to predict. As you know, we've had our ups and downs throughout this year, but we stay committed to achieving peace. Again, it wasn't us who started that. It was Russia who started that. They must be punished for the act of aggression. They must be punished and held accountable for numerous war crimes and crimes against humanity. And at the end of the day, we are out there defending democracy and fighting for our survival. We need the support of our allies. We need the support of Australia, and for which we are, of course, thankful for every assistance that we can get. But, nobody thought that the war would be at this scale, at this magnitude, and so deadly.
Indeed. Well, Vasyl, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for the update. Appreciate it.